Hello everyone, welcome back to Blender Bits. Today we're going to be going over modifiers. Modifiers are something that's easy to use and can create some pretty cool results with a couple of clicks. So the first thing you're going to want to know is that there are a lot of modifiers in Blender. There are 52, and those are just the main ones on your default transformation type stuff. And today we're going to be going over the three modifiers that I would use the most and I would consider pretty helpful with daily modeling. Those are the array modifier, the bevel modifier, and the curve modifier. So I'm going to explain how all three of those work in today's tutorial. So the first thing we're going to want is an object to modify. So like usual, let's start with a cube by hitting Shift A and adding in a cube. From there, you can see we're already on the modifiers tab. If you look here, this little wrench symbol is our modifiers properties. So let's start with the array modifier. Go to Add Modifier and Array. So the first thing you'll notice is our cube has lengthened. That's because we have two of our cubes with a relative offset of 1, meaning that they're right next to each other. So if we change the count up to 3 and change the relative offset to be further, they will move apart. Another thing that's helpful with modifiers is they can be stacked. For instance, if we add another array modifier, you can see it does the same thing. The thing is, we might want it to be more of a grid pattern, so if we change our relative offset to not be in the X direction, but instead in the Y direction, you can see now that it goes in that direction. And if we add a third one, we now have a grid of cubes. And now if we were to add another array modifier on, and instead go in the Z direction, we now have a cube of cubes. And this can be used for any object that you have selected in your scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click down on these right here to kind of close them up. And I'm going to hit Add Modifier Bevel. As you can see, this has beveled all the cubes. Something you're going to want to know about modifiers is they apply their properties in order. So the array modifier comes first, then array 001, then array 002, then the bevel. So if we were to put the bevel first, it would change. Actually, it wouldn't change because it would add its bevel to just this cube right here and then add the array modifier. So as you can see, the bevel has lots of different options here. You can change the amount of segments to make it smoother or less smooth, and you can change the size of the bevel. I would suggest using your edit mode that we learned in the previous episode to bevel objects, as you have a lot more control and it can be simpler if you get the hang of it. So I'm going to hit X to get rid of all these modifiers. And the last modifier we're going to want to use is called a curve modifier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift A and go to Curve and add in a Bezier curve. I'm going to scale up by hitting S so that we can see where our curve is. So the first thing you'll notice is that we have this curve here, but we're going to need to add the modifier to our cube, as the cube is the one that's being changed, not the curve. So it's at Add Modifier, Curve. And then in this object selection, you can either pick it from the drop-down list or use this little eyedropper here and pick the curve. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that our cube has snapped itself to the end here and is starting to try to bend to the curve. But since our cube has so low geometry, it's not able to change much. So let's add an array modifier. And as you can see, it starts to array up along the x-axis. If we want it to array and then move on the curve, we need to put the array modifier above the curve. And now if we start changing the count, our cube here will array along the curve. No matter what we do to the cube, it will stay on that curve. I hope you've learned something in today's tutorial and you've taken away something that can be helpful when doing other tutorials or just playing around in general.